Today, when we think of Shenzhen, we see a great metropolis city on the south of China with great international brands. But if we clock the time backwards, around the 80s, it was small, not so important fishing town with a population of about 59,000 according to a census in 1980. Today, it is a home of about 12.5 billion people, a huge metropolis with skyscrapers and towers, and home to one of the largest tech companies on the planet, Huawei. This city is emblematic to China's technological rise over the past 4 decades. Its explosion in technology and development has never really happened before in human history, from an agricultural-based society to the technological powerhouse in just a couple of decades. This rise was not sudden, and China wouldn't have become the technological powerhouse if it hadn't used the instrument we call as keyboard. A keyboard consists of about 80 keys with a language that is widely used and recognized in the West, where technological rise is on its peak. Whereas, if we see the Chinese language, it has about 70 to 80,000 characters. So, the question came, how really did China use this keyboard of a language so different than theirs and just embedded their language on it? China today is a successful shadow of the correct decisions that their leaders made in the past. But this is not just that, and the factors that led to such boost were the impact of Mao Zedong laying the founding steps, the conflict between Taiwan and China, and most importantly, geopolitics that just plummeted the concept of writing script between Taiwan and China. This is the story of how China mastered the keyboard, developed it, and used it so efficiently than the West that led China to their technological rise. As we know, technology got developed at such a rapid pace and its development and use skyrocketed in the West. Computers became a basic tool for communication and programming. While the whole world was into computers and shifting their lifestyle on it, China, with a population of about 1 billion, had a total of only 3,000 computers in the entire country. They were practically inferior and led back from the Western countries in computer literacy. Knowing this fact, being behind the West, Chinese authorities were determined and in 1985 developed kanji. It can be described as using different shaped characters to assemble and make a new. One setback to this, however, was that it was complicated, not quite fast, and less reliable in the beginning. Luckily, China had a trick up their sleeve, and this would massively aid the Chinese speakers type on the keyboard, which we know as the QWERTY keyboard. It all began with Chairman Mao Zedong, the supreme leader of the People's Republic of China. He had a vision that in order to modernize China, they need to revolutionize the written Chinese. Instead of learning thousands of characters and alphabets, Mao suggested that we need to Romanize the Chinese written language and use the Roman script and words that would sound like Chinese. By 1949, Mao was about to take this step, which would have been a great move, but his comrade and close friend Joseph Stalin, the former leader of the USSR, convinced him not to take such a move and completely replace the Chinese characters. So Mao agreed to an extent. He kept the Chinese characters as the main writing system, whereas in schools, he developed a written alphabetic system called Pinyin. In this, the Roman script was introduced and the words that sounded Chinese were added. He worked the whole phonics of it. This Romanization of Chinese language would be the base of the development that would help China in the coming decades, which would inevitably make China a global power, economy, and make them the technological powerhouse. Let us clock back the time to the Chinese Civil War after World War II. China was in chaos when Mao's Communist Party and Chiang Kai-shek's Kuomintang Party fought over the authority of China. This ended in Mao's victory and the establishment of a communist country of China, whereas the Kuomintang of Chiang Kai-shek retreated to the island of Taiwan, only 161 kilometers away from the mainland. Now Mao in power started his Romanization of Chinese language and used Pinyin to his advantage. Taiwan, however, opposed to the concept of Pinyin but somewhat accepted such an idea and developed their own system based off an old alphabetic system which was developed even earlier in 1918 called Zhuyin. It was older than Pinyin and had a completely new set of symbols. As we can see, both Pinyin and Juyin were new and developed in the past century. Let's fast forward to the 1980s and the 90s. China has quickly adopted to technology, and using the typing method of Pinyin is actually using the keyboard to compete in the computing world. Nevertheless, they still struggled behind the West. They were not as quick in typing, and Chinese government were having none of it. They were about to devise a plan to make it faster, and China accomplished it in the 1980s, which completely turned the tables. They developed a predictive text typing system which would help the Chinese speakers to operate computer at ease and enable them to work at a faster pace. This would go from writing the root word and the system to predict the next possible word preference, and this would aid the operator who would easily select the option and he or she would need and proceed onwards. This system developed by China of predictive text started way before the West could even think of such approach. China now was 3 decades ahead of technology from the West. So as we speak of quick and reliable typing, we need to take an overall approach to how it enhances typing speed. A normal person spends time on a computer averaging about 40 to 50 words per minute. A person, or better say a programmer, who spends more time on the keyboard averages about 70 to 80 words per minute. But as we proceed towards an average Chinese typist, they average about 240 to 250 words per minute. This is not only fast, but this shows that they are typing on a whole different language, so different than the West, in which the computers are programmed or made. On the contrary, China used this technology, designed and used for Western-based technology, and mastered it way better than anyone in their own language. But this still didn't end the need for speed for Chinese authorities, and they yet still went on developing the system. Recently, China upgraded it to a whole new level when they introduced cloud-based predictive texting. The closest such algorithm related to such Chinese technology is the Google autocomplete. This was before Google was even invented, and decades before Google could even launch such an algorithm. This system enables one to type with even more efficiency. Like how a cloud-based system works, it checks the most commonly searched activities, predicts not only what one needs to write, but also suggests anything related to what it's written from another language if the servers with similar searches. The company that keeps this cloud-based predictive text databases is known by the name of Sogou. To conclude all this is the story of a nation who revolutionized the way of technology and entered the new age of technology way before the rest of the world, and got their name on the QWERTY keyboard with skill, thinking, and constant check and balance, and adopted the alien language to develop their own. This meteoric rise to power of this nation and becoming the technological powerhouse of the world was not sudden, it was steady. This is the story of how China conquered the keyboard and dominated the digital and the technological era.